Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
Good evening, and I think we're live, April.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we're live.
Yeah.
Lost my sound there for a minute.
Yeah.
But I think we're back.
Yeah, I'm sure the audience would appreciate that. I mean, they can understand that sometimes those things happen.
Yeah.
Sorry for the lateness. But good evening, everybody, and welcome to the program. And this afternoon, we want to share with you a position that the World Community Magazine is coming from, and that is we are community-oriented broadcast, and we try to convey information that is going to be beneficial to the communities and surrounding areas. In fact, it's worldwide because it's on Facebook and YouTube. So, having said that, tonight we're having a discussion. It's like an opposing view of last week's discussion, which was on the expected referendum to be on the ballot, and that is Ride For referendum. In that case, we had a guest that they talked about their point of view of being pro Ride For projects. So tonight we again being a community broadcast and community airwaves, we thought it was wise to and beneficial to everybody to get everybody's point of view. So this is obviously an opposing point of view, as our promo so appropriately went out with, thanks to Ms. Garner Davis. It was a beautiful promo that was sent out. So we would like to tonight, April. We want to. I guess you can help me out here. We want to present a different point of view, an opposing point of view, I believe. Miss Becky Ryan, who's going to be our guest this evening, to give us information to help us digest on why there's an entity that's opposing, an entity that's representing a number of group of people that's opposing the Ride For. So, April, I'll let you go ahead and talk a little bit more about our guests and have our guests elaborate on what this Ride For is.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, we welcome everyone to the broadcast tonight, and please feel free to share your comments or questions in the chat. We will, as usual, moderate those questions for our guest. And, our goal, as Brother Edward said, is to basically educate the community. And last year you heard pro-Ride For. This week, I guess you can call it anti-Ride For. And this is how it was presented to us. And, all jokes aside, and we laugh through this sometimes because it's always interesting whenever, you have opposing views, and you just have to really kind of take it all in and then make the best educated decision on what it is that you want to do. Right. And, we don't find this topic to be funny at all. We actually are delighted to have our special guest here tonight, and we're going to speak to her in just a moment. But just want to frame it up for everyone that last week, as Brother Edward said, we had a guest who talked about, how the penny sales tax, which is a part of this ballot referendum, could actually benefit Horry County in terms of fixing roads. And so, we were left with the education based on that particular entity of what it means to vote yes for this referendum and the different projects that would be impacted. We saw a schedule of projects that this $6 billion would actually cover. And, it's great that we have, audience input and participation when it comes down to these broadcasts, because, then the suggestion was, well, hey, let's hear the other side. And we're definitely open to that. And so we're going to hear the other side. And there's some very interesting information that is going to be shared with us tonight. And basically, we just want you to take in all of this information, even if you have to go back and watch last week's broadcast, and unpack it the way that you need to. Have discussions about it in your home, because the truth of the matter is that this is the time that you need to unpack and digest this information to make your own decision about how you want to vote.
Absolutely.
When you step into, go to the polls and you step into that booth to cast your vote, it's going to be in front of you, and it may be outlined in several paragraphs that within a few minutes you're going to feel some kind of anxiety about reading everything and then trying to understand the lingo, or even what it all means and the implications in the future. Well, last week's broadcast, we had one side of that. This week's broadcast is going to be the other side of that. And I think that this information is going to be intriguing enough and compelling enough for you to do your own research and find the answers that you need, or to ask questions before we all go to the polls on November the 5th. And so we are pleased to have with us tonight Becky Ryan, who is with the Coastal Conservation League. And she is going to, of course, tell us a little bit about herself, and then we're going to get into the talking points for the night. So, Becky, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here.
Absolutely. So we really appreciate the time in the pre-show just chatting about what this Ride for a Ballot Referendum is all about, and the impact it will have on our local communities. And so before we get into a deeper dive about all of that, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your work with the Coastal Conservation League?
I'd be happy to. So my name is Becky Ryan. I'm the North Coast Office Director with the Coastal Conservation League. So I cover our work up here in Horry County. I live and work here in Horry County. Our office is at Coastal Carolina University's Coastal Science Center, actually, so right in Conway. And the Coastal Conservation League is an environmental advocacy nonprofit. We are dedicated to advocating for the natural environment of all South Carolinians up and down the coast to the benefit of all. So I have been in this role for about 3.5 years now. I moved down here from Virginia, also lived in North Carolina and Florida, so always been in the Southeast. But I've really appreciated the natural beauty of Horry County, a lot of special places around the area that I would love to see protected.
Mm-hmm. So as we were, preparing in the pre-show, there were a couple of major points that kind of rose to the top as far as why your advocacy exists. And one of the most major parts is, of course, rooted in environmental protections. And so as we take a look at what the Ride For project means, you gave us a little background about previous RIDE projects that had a significant impact on the environment. And so I think we should start with a little bit of a frame up about your take on the history of the Ride For projects, and then kind of segue into now we're at Ride For. What does that mean for Horry County?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are on Ride 4, meaning there have been 3 previous RIDE programs. The first of it dates back to the 90s. It started out with a hospitality tax, so paid for completely by tourists. That one lasted for a number of years. Our most recent one was approved by voters in 2016, Ride 3. That one was for 8 years. It was a capital project sales tax, meaning it was a penny sales tax like this one is proposed to be, but it didn't have to only be roads. It could have been other building projects. So it could have been for building new community centers or something like that. That all did go to roads. So some of the major projects that we've seen from previous RIDE projects have been Highway 31. Was done under Ride 3, I believe. It still has an extension proposed into North Carolina that has not been completed and is underfunded. So there's actually $150 million on the Ride 4 project list to complete the Ride 3 projects. Also, Ride 3 included paving 100 miles of dirt roads. And if you look at the Horry County website, the Ride 3 dashboard, you can see what the status is for all of the Ride 3 projects. The paving of the dirt roads, resurfacing roads, widening projects. Most of the projects are currently on schedule. There's one that's been delayed the 17 intersection down in Garden City, and then 2 that have been completed. In terms of where they're at with the dirt roads, they're at about 46 of the 100 miles that they proposed over that 8-year time frame. And for resurfacing of roads, they've completed 86% of that. So this Ride 4 project list includes 200 miles of paving of dirt roads, and I think it's 400 miles of resurfacing roads over the 25-year time frame. So that's a significant increase in the amount of time, but not actually seeing more roads paved over that. And like I said, the Ride 3 program is already delayed and underfunded. Well, some of the projects are delayed. But yeah, just to give you a history of where we're at with the Ride projects.
Okay. So, you know, when I asked you, you know, what your major concerns are surrounding this particular project, you brought up 2 things. One is that the length of the project is 25 years in terms of even that penny sales tax being implemented for 25 years. The other part is that there's the environmental cost, and in terms of not, you know, monies, but also environmental protections that may be compromised. So let's first talk about the length of the project. You say it's too long, right? Ride 3 was 8 years. They're talking about 25 for this one. So dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a great place to start. So this is for 25 years. We're going to be stuck with this project list for 25 years. And it doesn't include some major projects that we would like to see on there, such as the 501 bridges are not on this list to be touched within 25 years. And we could do 3 of those 8-year capital project sales taxes in this same 25-year time frame. So there is, at the very bottom of the project list, local safety intersection improvements and other local improvements that are on the list for $600 million. But those projects are going to be about $15 million each. So 20 projects, about $15 million for each of those. And the projects will be decided by a commission that will be put together in 2042. So we will not have additional intersection improvements covered under this sales tax until 2042. So again, I think that this is way too long, and that we, at the rate that Horry County is growing, we need to be able to reassess where the needs are more frequently. One of the major projects that's on this list is Highway 90 widening. That would not have been a priority 25 years ago. 25 years ago, Highway 90 was a rural road. And certainly for the environmental concerns, you had asked this about the previous RIDE projects as well. So RIDE 3 had the 31, Highway 31, Carolina-based Parkway, that had significant wetland impacts. And so part of the mitigation, part of the offsetting of those wetland impacts was property that is owned by the Department of Natural Resources, but leased to Fish and Wildlife Service for the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge. And so we've already seen, you know, some of that mitigation going towards land conservation. And yet one of the major road projects that we have on this list is the SD Highway 22 extension that formerly was called SEL. People might know it from that. It's been talked about for 30 years. So it's had a few different names. It used to be called the Southern Evacuation Lifeline, but the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has required the name to be changed because it's not a true evacuation route. But what it is, it's an undefined route. There's 16 possible routes for it. They've not yet figured out which one it's going to be. They still have to go through the environmental impact process. But of those 16 possible routes, 15 of them go through the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge, again, which has already been set aside for mitigation from previous road projects, and is also credited with storing about 98 billion gallons of water during Hurricane Florence, which likely helped downtown Georgetown avoid the major flooding impacts that were predicted ahead of that storm. So we certainly don't want to see the refuge impacted. We also don't want to see the communities that are along the path impacted. So 10 of those 16 possible routes would go through Bucksport, one of our historic Black communities that has been experiencing regular flooding almost every year since 2015, certainly starting with Joaquin, Matthew, and then Florence being the worst. Having a road, a 4-lane interstate grade highway go through that community would not help their flooding situation. It would make it worse through having all of that additional impervious surface, not absorbing the water, having the impact to the wetlands that are in that area, the runoff that comes from highways. And then, of course, we know when we have new highways built, we get more development. You can see that in Burgess when 31 was extended and 707 was widened. Back in the 90s, Burgess only had about 3,000 people, and now it's over 30,000 people. You can see that on Highway 90 after they paved International Drive. Highway 90 is exploding right now. So, when we build new roads, we bring in more housing and we bring in more traffic, and that is certainly going to make the existing flooding issues in Bucksport worse.
And so, you've talked about the tax implications for 25 years, and that is too long in your view to be locked into a tax, right? Ride 3 was only 8 years, and then I'm sure there was some type of a review, renewal, or whatever that. Go ahead.
That's happening right now. So Ride 3 will expire April 30th of 2025. If this passes, Ride 4 will start collecting May 1st. It will replace Ride 3.
Replace what? So let me ask you that. That's interesting. If it's going to replace Ride 3, then what happens to the Ride 3 projects that aren't complete?
So that's where the $150 million comes in. If they do end up being underfunded, if those projects move forward, some of them may not. But because, for example, the 31 extension into North Carolina is not really up to Horry County. So they're waiting to see what happens with North Carolina. But if those projects move forward, $150 million from Ride 4 will go to pay any additional costs necessary for Ride 3, especially since inflation has caused the costs of all construction to go up. This will help pay for those underfunded projects if it passes.
And so then, of course, the position that Coastal Conservation League is taking overall is, let's not talk about building new roads. Let's talk about fixing the existing roads. Am I correct?
That is certainly our priority, especially when so many of our roads are flooding. If you think about back in December when we had that nor'easter come through and schools were closed as a result of all the roads that were flooded. Many of those roads, most of those roads are secondary roads that are not on this project list to be addressed over 25 years. So yes, we certainly do think that our priority, where our money should be going, is to fixing our existing roads, making sure that they are flood resilient. What good is a new highway if people can't get out of their neighborhoods?
Absolutely.
So thank you for the good elaboration on where these things, some of the consequences you laid out. One is, suppose the referendum doesn't pass. What are you prepared to lay out a case for that in terms of the implications of that?
Yeah. So if this does not pass in November, which we hope it does not, then we can come back in 2026 because it has to be a general election year. I live in unincorporated Horry County. I don't have any elections on an odd year ballot, so I won't have anything to vote for in 2025. So it has to be when all of us have something on the ballot. So 2026, we can come back and reconsider the 8-year capital project sales tax, which again will give us more opportunities to reassess where the priorities are. And, it may delay some of these projects by a couple of years, but we can still be working on the permitting. So some of these major projects like the Highway 90 widening are going to take environmental impact statements before they go forward, especially since there are 3 swamp crossings. That's going to take a lot of mitigation. That's going to take a lot of permitting from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Services. So in this interim of 2 years, we can still be working on those permitting side of things before we talk about, actually paying money towards the construction of it. So we can come back in 2026 and prioritize these existing road issues before we talk about billions of dollars. I don't think I've emphasized that enough. We're talking about 1.56 billion for the 22 extension, 450 million for I-73 just for the Horry County portion from 22 to the Marion County line. They would need to get an additional $2 billion from state or federal sources to actually build it to I-95. And we have 150 million for the Ride 3 Highway 31 extension on this project list, and we have 860 million for the Conway River crossing. So if you add all that up, we're looking at $3 billion of new road projects out of the 6.35 billion total to be raised. So rather than spending those billions of dollars on new highway projects, why not put even a portion of that towards improving our existing roads, our bridges? The 501 bridges, again, are not on this list. And going back to that 8-year one gives us that opportunity to decide where the priorities are and not be stuck with a list for 25 years.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most important points that you brought up during our prep conversation, is the fact that if this is voted down, it will come back in 2026 general election. You'll have a chance to consider some things, maybe even have some conversations, and be able to give some input. And I do have a question from Priscilla Fuller, who is one of our loyal watchers. Thank you, Priscilla, for watching tonight. Will citizens have input on how and where dollars are spent? If this is voted down this year, will there be a chance for public input on any of this before it comes back around?
So it will be up to Horry County Council to decide whether or not it's a referendum again in 2026. So yes, there will be public input. So this process for Ride 4 started with a 18-member advisory committee made up of representatives from each county council district. And they were discussing the 8-year capital project sales tax. It then went to a 6-member sales tax commission. It had 3 members from Horry County, unincorporated, 1 each from North Myrtle Beach, and Conway. They are the ones that decided, instead of doing the capital project sales tax, to do the 25-year sales tax and significantly raise that pool of money to work with. And they're the ones that included I-73 and the 22 extension and the Conway River crossing and all of those new projects. There also were 7 community meetings around the county during a public input process. The problem is, after they collected a lot of comments, most of which were related to improvements that people wanted to see in their neighborhoods. So River Oaks Drive, for example, which was already on the project list, or other widening projects. Town of Atlantic Beach had submitted comments for projects that they wanted to see. There were other widening projects. There were comments for taking off I-73 or the 22 extension. The only thing that the Sales Tax Commission changed, these 6 members changed, was to add $25 million to the Coast RTA budget for new facilities. So a maintenance facility and a couple of passenger facilities. After all of that public input, that was the only change that they made. And that was a great one. But that's another good point too, is that we're looking at $299 million for Coast RTA for our buses. But that's over the 25 years. So that comes out to about, $12 million a year, which still means that Coast RTA is underfunded compared to other metro areas of a comparable size. We are not funding Coast RTA at the level that we should be, at the level that the Coastal Conservation League would like to see, because, we think that the best way to reduce our traffic congestion is not to necessarily build more roads or to even widen roads. Those are temporary fixes at best. The best way to address the traffic congestion in the long run is to take cars off the road through mass transit, through bike and pedestrian infrastructure, through building walkable communities where you don't have to get in your car to go to a grocery store or to restaurants or to work. More places like a market common where you have a lot of the things congregated together to get cars off of 501 and 17 and 701 and all of our major roads.
Okay.
Do you think Market Common is successful at that?
I do. I think the Publix is too far away for most people to be able to walk there, but at least you don't have to get on 17 to get to it.
You got to live in that area. You got to live close in proximity, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean is, if you live in Market Common, you have access to the Publix, you have access to restaurants, a dentist, and, even the DMVs over there too. You have access to a lot of services that mean you don't have to get on 501 or 17 or, or major highways to access. For example, I live in a community where I live off of 707. So 707 has sidewalks, and I have two grocery stores, Publix and Lowe's Foods, within 2 miles, but I don't have sidewalks to get to 707. So I don't have a way to get to the highway to bike or walk to those grocery stores. Right. So, I think it's about smarter design of our communities, not having everything sprawled out, but congregating residential with commercial within proximity so that we don't have to get in a car and drive 15 minutes to get to a grocery store or a barbershop or whatever it might be. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I was going to go on a serious tangent here, but you have two grocery stores within 2 miles of each other. Right. You certainly don't live in a food desert. So, that's a whole nother segment, but it's really interesting that, those two, food suppliers are within your reach, but at the same time, you still have access problems where, there are real access problems in other communities.
Absolutely.
So, yes, I just want to, definitely step into the chat room for just a second. Dorothy Reeves, thank you for watching. And she says, she purchased a property in 2017. They were told that there would be a paved road in place. Still, they live on a dirt road. The county only allows the community to speak, but nothing has changed. So who could address those types of issues? And it sounds like to me that these could certainly be issues no matter, what we do with the ride for ballot referendum. But, there's a public input concern that I'm seeing rising up in the comments tonight. How can people voice their concerns about things that are going on with our roads?
Yeah. So like I said, they've only paved about 46 of the 100 miles that were promised under Ride 3. But I think the best way to get your roads paved that were promised to you is to talk to your county council member, figure out who they are, call them. If they don't respond to you, or if still nothing changes, speak out at county council. There's a public input section at the beginning of every council meeting, and they don't like to be called out in public. Certainly don't direct it directly to an individual council member, but bring it up for your community. And it means a lot if you have other community members there with you. If you have your neighbors, there's 5 or 10 of you there calling for the same issue, that definitely gets their attention. But unfortunately, too often communities do have to speak up for themselves to get attention. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
And that's what they say. Mary Cookie Goins also, thank you for watching tonight. We really appreciate it. She says, have alternative routes been researched in lieu of going through Bucksport and Burgess?
So there are 16 possible routes for this road. Like I said, 10 of them go through Bucksport and Burgess. And certainly the county has been planning for it to go through Bucksport and Burgess. So 2 years ago, we had a proposed development in Burgess, right next door to St. James High School, that had a proposed development agreement with it that would have set aside right-of-way acquisition for this road, even though they have not finalized the route, they have not permitted it, but the county seems to be planning for it to go in the St. James High School, Salem Road, Freewoods Farm area. There's also been a community across from St. James High School, the Harmony at St. James, that has been approached about right-of-way acquisition. So yes, there are possible routes, 6 of them that don't go through Bucksport and Burgess, but that does not seem to be where the county is planning for it to go. And I've heard the assistant county administrator for infrastructure and regulation say that the intention for this road is to connect to 17 bypass, and most likely in the Merle's Inlet Garden City area. So they would have to cross the river there in Bucksport and likely go through the Grand Strand water and sewer land that's just downstream of the marina and through the Walkable National Wildlife Refuge down into Bucksport. Down in Burgess.
And I don't know if you covered it earlier. You certainly, given us a pretty comprehensive overview of, some of the areas that will be impacted by, the environmental impact. But, earlier we talked about the swamps, and you said that, if there was anywhere to start in terms of trying to make an impact with the road, start with the 4 swamps and start with those bridges. And so let's talk about those 4 swamps and why that's your position.
Yeah, so that was regarding Highway 90, the widening project for that. If this gets voted down in November, it's always been discussed, even if this does pass in November, it's a pay-as-you-go program. We are not bonding this. So that means we will, accrue the revenue from the sales tax over time. And the Highway 90...
You mean the county?
The county, yes.
Yeah,
the county
okay.
will not have a lump, the 6.35 billion, on May 1st of 2025, they're going to have to collect that money over the 25 years. So the Highway 90 project is supposed to be around $745 million. That is not going to be raised overnight. So, if this gets voted down in November, even if it passes in November, either way, they're going to have to do it in pieces. And so it's always been discussed that they would start with the swamp crossings, Sterrett, Tilly, and Big Jones Swamp. Those bridges all went underwater during Hurricane Florence. They're supposed to be about $100 million just for those projects. So, if we came back in 2026 and passed the capital project sales tax, we could do $100 million for those swamp crossings.
And so we love to make sure that everyone understands definitions of terms that we don't hear every day. Capital project sales tax. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so that is another 1 cent or penny sales tax. It's what Ride 3 was. It lasts for 8 years. If you renew it, it's 7 years. But if we have not renewed it, the Horry County is proposing to replace it instead with this transportation sales tax. So if we came back in 2026, we could do that full 8-year sales tax. And what I mean by capital projects is they're large scale building. So it can be roads, it can be community centers, it can be public parks. For example, Georgetown County has a capital project sales tax on their ballot this November. And it has all sorts of projects on there, including new baseball facilities, new widening projects. There's a Merle's Inlet dredging on there. There's all sorts of projects. So it doesn't have to just be road projects. The transportation tax has to be related to transportation. So either roads or mass transit, something like that.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I'm glad you said that part. It has to be related to transportation, but in some kind of way, there's a correlation there. But like you mentioned earlier about more flooding off of highways, stuff like that, right? So I want to allude to Bucksport, which has had an issue for forever, seems to me, regarding flooding, and I'm sure the roads have contributed to that. or lack of roads in a lot of respect, and sometimes it's just water table. Okay, but can any manipulation of the road projects by way of construction of roads to divert the runoff, is that part of that? I mean,
So
maybe.
yeah, so if you ask the residents of Bucksport, and I work with them a lot, especially the Association for the Betterment of Bucksport. Miss Mary Owens is the historian of Bucksport in my mind. Like, she literally wrote
Absolutely.
a book.
Yeah. She is the historian.
Right. And if you ask her, they've not always had the flooding issues. It really dates back to 2015 with Hurricane Joaquin that came through. That was really the start of these flooding issues that they've been having. And the county's actually done a project, Big Bull Landing. They have they're in the process of raising up that road to create a dam of sorts, to stop the flooding into downtown, or not downtown, but the main part of Bucksport.
Yeah.
And so we will hope that works. But they've already said that it's not going to stop a Hurricane Florence level event.
Right.
It could stop flooding for a Hurricane Matthew, or even the 2021 storm that they had, but it's not going to stop if we get as much water coming down from North Carolina as we did during Hurricane Florence, because Bucksport is sandwiched in between the PD and the Waccamaw rivers. So during Florence, they got it from both rivers. Most of the flooding issues come from the PD, but in terms of the roads, I mean, you can build them up high so the roads don't flood, but I don't think that's going to help the community. And they do have to build it to a standard that there's outfalls, and they try to mitigate for those flooding impacts. But just building a road, having that impervious surface that does not absorb water, it just sloughs off. And you have to go through wetlands, because there's Calford Swamp right there, there's the Waccamaw River, there's the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge. They're going to have to go through wetlands that are currently storing those floodwaters for Bucksport. Like, it could be worse than what Bucksport currently has if they didn't have the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge there storing some of that water. So I don't think there's any way for a new road.
In other words, Bucksport. I'm trying to look at beneficiaries of Bucksport, of the Ride 4. Apparently, from what you've explained, it's not really in a very apparent benefit from the implementation of Ride 4 for the Bucksport area.
Yeah, I would not say so. So, the folks that are in favor of Ride 4 say that having this road across the Waccamaw will make it faster for folks in Bucksport to get to the beach and to be able to get to jobs that are down at the beach, or
Right.
in Myrtle Beach. I cannot speak for Bucksport, but I would be concerned about the flooding impacts and question whether or not that would be a real benefit for me, especially since, again, we know that new highways bring more development. We're already seeing development pressures come down 701 from both ends. Conway with the new Warden Station Pitch Landing project, and coming up from Plantersville. Bucksport is already threatened with major development projects. There's the one in Bucksville too that's already slated to happen. So I would be concerned about what a new highway will mean for the character of Bucksport, and that
Right.
is still largely a rural way of life. We see it in other areas that these new development projects raise the cost of property taxes for the surrounding community and
That's true.
dignifies the community. So I would be very concerned. And to somebody's point as well, historic Black neighborhoods have long been, unfortunately, the site of highways all over the country for, decades, but really since highways came through in the 50s. So I lived for a number of years in Charlotte, and uptown Charlotte or downtown Charlotte was bisected through the black neighborhoods in Brooklyn and the Fourth Ward. Those communities were lost. And I do worry about what that would mean for Bucksport. We're already seeing it in Burgess with, the Freewoods communities getting pushed out and overrun by all the white retirees that are moving in. It's not the way it was back in the 50s. I mean, I've talked to Cad Holmes, who lives on Holmestown Road, who grew up in the area. And, for a long time, that area was considered undesirable because of the soil conditions and how wet it is. And now it's prime real estate with lots of new housing developments coming in. And the thing is, if I-73 and the 22 extension get built, it opens up Western Horry County for development. And if you look at a map, we could fit 3 Carolina forests in that area, which is just unbelievable to think just how built out Carolina Forest is. And that could happen to Cool Springs and the Nichols area, PD Highway and Bucksport. All of that area could be completely built out. And the Coastal Conservation League is not against growth, not against development, but we do want to see it balanced with conservation, with protections for our communities. So, working on cultural protection overlays to try to have the community members lay out a plan for what sort of development they do want to see and what sorts they don't want to see. And, again, with the capital project sales tax, or even with a transportation tax, if Horry County reconsidered it, we could put a portion of that sales tax revenue towards land conservation, which is what Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester, and Beaufort counties have done to offset all of the development, all the new roads, with conservation to help protect our special places, our communities, and our natural resources, so that it's not just every tree's cut down and every inch is built on.
So how do you foresee or the feasibility of having mass transit? I call it mass transit, even though it's not a real urban area around. But like in the Myrtle Beach area and so forth. How do you see? Can you foresee? Not foresee, but can you visualize some sort of mass transit, maybe light rail or something taking place? They already have a railroad track. Okay, that could be a reliever for say for 501, or a reliever for people going to work from the length of that railroad track. I don't know where it goes. I think it goes all the way to Florence. I might say, I don't know.
I think there's an existing line that goes from Loris to Myrtle Beach that's been considered for a rail to trail network.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, light rail will be amazing. I love the light rail in Charlotte. And yeah, I imagine the $3 billion that we're putting to build new highways could certainly make a dent in a light rail program. Or, what Charleston County is doing is a bus rapid transit. So going down, what is it? Is it River Road in North Charleston? We could do that with 501, have like a dedicated bus lane for a bus that just goes up and down 501. That would certainly take a lot of cars off the road. To get students from Conway to the beach. Or, for people to not have to get in a car to go, to Costco from Conway, from, either downtown Conway or even, any of the mini subdivision, Wild Wing, to get from Wild Wing to Costco. I imagine there's a lot of people that make that trip. If we had a bus system, I'd rather do that, especially given the parking lot of Costco. Who wants to drive to Costco?
Yeah, I think that all these ideas that we're talking about this evening are definitely ideas. They're visionary. They're things that would certainly make travel more efficient, more environmentally friendly. in Horry County. I think that, of course, the challenge you would have is changing public or consumer behaviors because, when you come from a metro area, people are used to riding mass transit. They're used to, hiking and biking, meaning, they'll walk to work, they'll walk to the store, they'll get on the electric scooters, they'll do whatever. But, in our area, we have to be real about how people really want to get around in Horry County. And if they, I remember when transit first came on the scene, and as a teenager who worked at the pavilion, that was really the only way to get there, right? Yeah. Most teens nowadays have access to some kind of vehicle, and a lot of them have never ridden, they've never ridden the transit. And so, there would have to be a lot of intentionality as far as people changing their behaviors and looking at the idea of saving the environment and really understanding the impact that these types of things have on our communities long term. And it's the kind of thing that we shouldn't take off the table, but I'm sure that it would be years and few and far between that we would see those types of ideas come to fruition. I think that as we talk about like the concerns that you have, and you mentioned that I-73 project, and earlier you mentioned that that's like a stretch of 95 to outside of Latta, and the 300 acres of wetlands and the family farms that you've mentioned, and Little PD and all these other areas. The bottom line for all of this and the greatest takeaways is that according to Coastal Conservation League and anyone who sides with Coastal Conservation League on this Ride For ballot referendum, a no vote means that you are, trying to save the environment. You're trying to make sure that the community is not, locked into, a tax campaign that's going to last 25 years. When there is an alternative to that, which is not voting for this particular referendum at this time, because it will come back around in 2026, possibly, I guess, for the general election. And then, there's some things that can be done to further educate ourselves on, what we can do in the meantime. And, one of the other takeaways from that is, in the meantime, if you feel strongly about this Ride For a ballot referendum, you need to engage with your Horry County Council and have the conversation and, try to, raise your voices in these matters of concern. Otherwise, I guess Horry County Council is going to continue whatever their initiatives are, however they're going to do it. Because, one thing that was said last week was even if it isn't passed, the roads are going to be built. And it's not that they're all going to be built all at one time, but, some phases will occur. And so, as you think about even that statement that was made in last week's broadcast, what happens if this is a no? And, it sounds like it's something that we probably can avoid short term, but may not be able to avoid long term. And so if you had to, give your final greatest bit of advice on how people should really think about this, what do you think are the two main things that they need to take from your conversation with us tonight as they consider all of the information and make their decisions about how they're going to vote?
I recognize that there are projects on this list that are desperately needed to help communities in Horry County, but I would ask people to consider whether or not those benefits outweigh the costs for billions of dollars to new highways that could be going to, as we've been talking about, improving our existing roads or to more mass transit. I'd ask them to consider whether or not more roads and more development and more traffic is really what they want to see for Horry County. If we do want to lose the rural parts of the county that we currently have and are already fading out, or if it's time to pause on this development at this pace that we're going at. Horry County is set to surpass Charleston County in population by 2027, 3 years. It's incredible to think about. So consider whether or not our infrastructure is keeping up with our pace, and if building new roads is the right way to go, especially through our conservation lands that are meant to be protected forever. and through our communities that are already vulnerable to flooding. Ask yourselves if that's the Horry County that you want to see.
Well, Brother Edward, I'm telling you, we have heard both sides over these past 2 weeks, and we are just, a couple of weeks away from this election. And I hope that our viewers will take the time to, listen to both sides, but also continue to do the homework. And, I'm sure there are tons of articles out there. And, sometimes, information overload, overkill can lead to even more confusion. But, we've had two obviously intelligent representatives from their various organizations to come on to the show and talk about, the yeses for Ride 4, the no for Ride 4, the what you need to consider for Ride 4. And if you kind of overlay both of them, you might see some common threads in terms of, the messaging. But I think that there's a distinct enough message that lets you know that, a yes means there are some serious implications, for this, and a no means the same thing. And so let's figure out which side we're on and just take a side. Just make sure you vote. Get out and vote. And as you cast your vote, remember, even if you vote yes, if you vote no, you still need to engage with the decision makers to make sure that everyone understands what the implications are, what the impacts are to these communities. And I can say, Becky, that you have certainly presented a very compelling argument tonight. And the information is definitely important, as Cookie Goins mentioned. It's just really important to inform the community, because we have a responsibility to make sure that we understand what we're voting for, who we're voting for, and all that other good stuff. Priscilla Fuller has one last thing, and I'll pose the question: why has the county not considered a one-time additional tax for people moving into our county due to the lower taxes to assist with the infrastructure? I don't know that they haven't considered it, but I mean, Becky, do you have any insight as to whether or not, there have been other formulas for tax considerations to, support new infrastructure, roads, or whatever?
Yeah, so Horry County, to my knowledge, has not considered that tax for people moving in. They do have impact fees for new developments, but that goes to fire stations, schools, does not go to roads. So our impact fees could go to helping with roads as well. There was a proposal from a senator in the state legislature last year that ended up getting called the Yankee tax. That was something like that, where folks moving into the state would have to pay a fee to offset these costs. That did not move forward. But if somebody is interested in something like that, certainly talk to your representatives.
Absolutely. Brother Edward, do you have anything else you'd like to ask our special guest tonight? I think she's done an amazing job explaining her side, her view. And I say her, meaning you're representing Coastal Conservation League. So Coastal Conservation League's view on things. And, it's certainly giving me some food for thought.
Yeah, I really appreciate both views last week and this week.
And this week.
Yeah, they both gave some tremendous substances, used for plural, that I think is going to help all of us make a good decision on November 5th for this referendum. I just think that, all the information is good, and I've always thought that information was power. So, yes, Becky, so thank you so much for your elaboration on your point of view. I mean, you and your group, whomever you're representing. And the transparency has been excellent in both cases. So, I'll leave it up to our viewers and our voters. I'm wanting everybody to vote.
Right. So before we go, I definitely want to share this website with you, coastalconservationleague.org/projects/vote no on the 2024 sales tax. You can go to the website and check out the work of the Coastal Conservation League, find out more about the initiatives and also the project that's in question, and make this a part of your research. And Becky, if anyone has any questions or whatever, should they be in touch with Coastal Conservation League? And I'm sure that there are others who will probably watch this and want to know more about what you all do and more of your thoughts on this. So I also see that you have, is this a sample ballot?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's take a moment to just kind of look at this for a second. Horry County on the ballot, vote no to protect communities and wetlands. This is the position of the Coastal Conservation League. But also, there's a coroner, auditor, county treasurer, county council district 6, soil and water district commission. But there's also the local question, which is all about the special sales and use tax of 1%. And that's what we're having this big discussion about, or we've had these discussions about for the past 2 weeks. There's another statewide constitutional amendment on here, and hopefully, Brother Edward, we can shed some light on that in some way, and talk a little bit more about that one as well. But anyway, go to this website and you can take a look at the sample ballot. Maybe it gives you an opportunity to even read over the sections and the articles that are in question, and just do your homework. This is all a part of the homework. So Becky, we'll leave you with the last word, and then we'll bid our viewers a good night and thank them for being a part of this. So what do you want to leave our viewers with tonight?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've appreciated it so much. And I will leave you with the reminder that early voting has started. So yesterday is the first day of early voting. So you don't have to wait until November 5th. It's best to get it done and out of the way. You never know what might pop up between now and November 5th. So go ahead and vote early. And yes, if anybody has any questions about the Coastal Conservation League or our position on Ride 4 and the referendum, my information is on that website. So again, it's conservationleague.org. You just look for our work, and North Coast is at the very top of this Ride 4 referendum. And you'll find my email address and my phone number on there. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here this evening. And Brother Edward, let's see, next week we will have a little bit more that's related to the upcoming election. And so stay tuned for the promo coming soon. And, this is going to be, of course, more geared towards, pretty much voter movement and what you need to do, what you need to know as you make your way to the polls. And like Becky says, early voting has already started. So if you need to vote early for the various reasons that you can vote early, do so. Get it done. Make sure you do your homework and learn more about the referendum and also the other constitutional amendment section and article that is on the sample ballot. And, if you have any questions, things that you'd like for us to explore, why don't you drop us a line on the World Community Magazine's Facebook page, or either send us a message through our website. And we'll certainly do our best to, try and educate everybody in this election season. So, Brother Edward, I've enjoyed this broadcast and this little series. We didn't plan it, it just happened.
So April, you mentioned next week. Is this? We just gave them a broad overview, right, of what we're continuing on.
Yes, because I do not have all of the details. Right. So, but I can tell you that the group that is expected to present some information that will, help voters as they make their way to the polls are, local chapter of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And I'm just waiting on the final promotional information. But I promise you it's going to be great information and you won't want to miss it. So we'll get that promotion out as soon as possible for next Tuesday's broadcast. And again, if there's anything else that you want us to explore, that maybe we could do at the top of the broadcast or something like that, let us know, because this is such an important election and we cannot afford to be uninformed as we go to the polls.
All of our elections since I've been born, it's been very, very important. I'm telling you, I've been very, very important. And I just urge people to just go out and exercise your vote, something that some of our ancestors have gotten killed over.
Absolutely.
To do. Okay. And
absolutely.
We owe it to them.
Mm-hmm.
We owe it to them.
That's right. So,
okay.
So anyway, we would just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Remember, the rebroadcast is available on wcmagazine.net. Send people to the website. It'll be there all week. And then also, if you want to just, grab this link real quick from our YouTube page, it's WCM Live Radio. Just go to YouTube and grab the link, share it, help educate the community. That's what we're trying to do.
April, our latest issue of the magazine.
Yes.
Get it on the website, right?
Yes, you can see that on the website.
On the website. It has our I'll say salutation to a retiring chief of police, Chief John Hill, and gives some good information about how he passed the baton to the new chief of Horry County Police. Yeah. Having said that, I want to wish everybody a good night.
Yep. Good night. Be safe.
Be safe. Godspeed. See you next week.
See you next week. All right.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.